Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to talk about the Sony a7c and how it is the perfect camera for me. Yes, I finally found the perfect camera for me. Stay tuned. So before we go too far, it is a perfect camera for me. I know not everybody has the same needs, wants, and shoots the same type of stuff. So this doesn't mean it's the perfect camera in the world for you. It's just perfect for me. And we're going to go through this video and I'm going to tell you why it's perfect for me and the features that are missing from the Sony a7 III compared to this, on how I get around it. And I don't even know if it's, well, some of it's getting around things, but I typically set up my a7 III the same way, just the way I do things. So let's get into that. Now, another thing is you're going to see the thumbnail have this really cool skin on it. I don't want to get out of my seat and show you guys, but you saw the thumbnail. Maybe I'll post some photos here. This is by a company called Life Plus Guard. I'll put a link in the description where you can get it. I also did, maybe, about 3 years ago, I did a video tutorial on how to apply these skins to your camera. And if you're one of those people who always comment in the social groups and just say, why? Because I like the look of it. I like to customize my stuff and I think it looks really cool. Not only that, if you want to hold the resale value of your camera because you like to sell it in order to buy the next year's model, by putting this on, you won't scratch your camera because you just take it off and it looks brand new. So that's why I did it. Check the link in the description. Now, I was waiting for a while to do this review because I've had the camera for quite a while now and I've done all sorts of photography with it. I do jewelry photography 5 hours a day, 5 hours a week, 6 hours a day, using this camera along with the Sony 90mm f2.8 macro. So I do a lot of work with this, and that flippy screen really comes in handy, and I'll probably go over that in a minute. I've also did just straight out street photography. I did landscape photography. Now I'm not like all into that type of photography, but I've done it. I did cityscapes. I did model-esque type shoots, and why I say that is because a model, a clothing designer contacted my wife if she wants to take her clothing and that I take the photos of it, and so we do that. So it's a model type photography. I haven't did like my professional magazine shoots yet with it, but I basically do it the same way. Did that, and what else did I do? Tons of travel with this camera, so I wanted to make sure I really use it a lot to make sure that what I'm going to tell you in this video I absolutely feel is true, and it's going to be quite a long time before I ever dive into another camera because it's just that good for me. It does everything I need, so keep that in mind. If you do that type of photography, this video might be interesting to you. Also, I will add, this is for photography only because, for the last 12 years I did videography, but for the last maybe 5 years, maybe even more, it slowly went just completely photography. So I'm using a Sony a7c for like 100% for photography. Of course, I dive into video now and then, and if I get a call saying, hey, we want you to do a video production, I'll do that as well. But this is predominantly for photography because almost every review I see on this camera, it's about, they would always say, like, if you're a professional photographer, this probably isn't the camera for you. You would probably want to get the Sony a7 III or some of the others if you're looking at Sony. But that really just depends on how you use your gear. There's been many cameras in the past that are set up similar to this. I think where it kind of gets blinded or foggy is it's close to the same price as the Sony a7 III. It has the same sensor as the Sony a7 III. And Sony kind of marketed this camera for vloggers, which is typically video. So I kind of see, why that's kind of foggy. And there are things missing from the Sony a7c that that are in the Sony a7 III that might be better for photography, but I'm going to show you why for me it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to go through these real quick. First off is the front dial. This camera does not, I have it right here. This camera does not have a front dial. That to me is no big deal because the way I set up my Sony a7 III is the same way I set up my Sony a7c. And since getting the Sony a7 III, and by the way, I have like 3 cameras on my top like favorite list. That's the Panasonic G9, the Fujifilm X-H1, and the Sony a7 III. But what made the Sony a7 III not enjoyable to use as much as those other ones is the gray focus point, very minor things. The gray focus point, every time I used the camera, I was always like, where is it? Oh my gosh, it's over here. So that was a little fiddly on it. And not having a completely articulating screen like the Panasonic G9 and a lot of other cameras I've had. And the X-H1, of course, had like kind of the half flippy, so you could still do low vertical shots. I'm huge on low vertical shots. That's why this is a must for me. But I just wanted to put that out there, that those 2 cameras are on my favorite list, and the Sony a7 III was just got me the best quality images with that autofocus. It's absolutely amazing. So I set this up the same way my Sony a7 III is, and that is aperture priority. Ever since I got the Sony a7 III, aperture priority has been my way to go. I use zebras at 109% using RAW plus JPEG, but I'm basically using RAW most of the time. And by putting zebras at 109 and aperture priority and auto ISO, because the ISO is so good on these cameras, I don't need a front dial button. I only need one dial to change the aperture, and it's not something I'm just like changing all the time on the fly. I usually shoot with the Tamron 28 to 75 millimeter f2.8, and that is an f2.8. I find that no matter where I am on the focal length, if I'm at 75 millimeters, it's usually because I'm doing a portrait shot, and f2.8 is pretty darn good. Now, if I'm doing a professional shoot for a clothing designer, the closer I get to the model, the narrower depth of field that gets. So we start getting blurry, you know, fabrics and stuff. So then I'll stop down to f5.6, f8. But usually on the Tamron, I'm not, or on any lens, I'm just not always just changing the aperture. Usually I shoot wide open or at f5.6 or whatever it is, and I kind of go with it from there. Sometimes if I have the 50 millimeter f1.8, if it's really, you know, I kind of want to get a cool shot, let's say, and the foreground, I kind of want to see like this can or a shoe on the ground or something, but I kind of want to see that, ooh, there's an Eiffel Tower in the background, you know, then I'll stop it down so you can see more in focus. So I don't need the front dial. That I put that on the rear dial, and I'll do another video on specifically how I set this up. So I only need the rear dial for the aperture. I don't need the front one. So that's how I get around with that. And on the Sony a7 III, it was basically the same setup. However, I probably used the front dial for that, but I easily can use the rear dial, and I have no issues with it. Let's go into the buttons. Now, they don't have as many buttons on here, nor on the top plate. Now, I'm probably one of the strange ones out there, but I actually hardly ever use most of those buttons. The buttons that I use mostly on the Sony a7 III, I can easily use on the back. And again, I'm not going to go into the whole setup here. I went too long on the front dial thing. But the same buttons that are here is the same buttons I would use on the Sony a7 III. In fact, on the Sony a7 III, I would be like, what should I use that for? I don't know. And I would always put it not set, meaning it doesn't do anything. That's just how I use it with aperture priority. I just don't use a lot of the buttons. So for me, using aperture priority, having the buttons that are here is fine. Just really quick, the trash can is my ISO. So that's where I change it. When I'm shooting flash and other specific situations, maybe I'm doing a cityscape on a tripod, then I'll use manual. But even with manual, I have pretty much everything I need. So, you know, the buttons I'm not missing, and the front buttons here on the Sony a7 III, I would have one button for white balance and one button for minimum shutter, because when I use aperture priority and auto ISO, I use shutter priority to tell my camera, hey, don't go any slower than this. And using zebras, like again, I'll do another video on it, it just works out perfect for me. I mean, I'm not fumbling around with anything. I'm going like this, and I use this rear dial that I put for exposure compensation. I come out of it, and that's really the only button I use. And then we've got the function button, so I'll go into function. And the cool thing with this camera now is when you're in photo mode, all those the quick button, function button, you have 2 rows of items. When you're in photo mode, it's going to show you different menus. When you're in video mode, that changes. So now I don't have to share it with any video mode. So any of the buttons like white balance that I might need to get to a little quicker is right in that function button. Like one press and I'm there with all those other buttons maybe other people use on the outside of the camera that I use there. I hardly ever get into it, but it's there and it's fast and easy. Next is the joystick. The joystick is something I hardly use on the Sony a7 III, and I know so many people say, oh my gosh, I have to have a joystick. That's what makes this camera perfect for me because I never use it. This focus system on this camera is so good that I don't use back button focus like I kind of used to on certain cameras. I just have, eye autofocus and that 4D focus or whatever you call it. It's so amazing that when I'm pointing the camera to something and I half press this, it almost always gets what I want in focus, right? And when I'm doing a human being, it's just eye autofocusing like perfect. I never have any issues. If I want to, so the joystick for me changing different, changing my focus point around, I just never do. It's so easy on this camera to, let's say I want to focus on something in the foreground here, but it keeps focusing on you, the audience, or the camera over there. All I have to do is just press anywhere on this screen, boop. I don't even have to be precise. I mean, I could just go like this and press it and go back, put the focus mark, whatever, on what I want. And when I press and hold the back button, it's that live tracking. So it's just like, let's say it's focusing on this. Let's say it's focusing on you, and I want to focus on that. I just tap over here, press and hold, and recompose and take a shot. I mean, it's just so easy and so quick. I wouldn't even need a joystick on this camera, and I hardly used it on the Sony a7 III as well, because I kind of did the same thing, but it's so much better on this. So no joystick needed for me. Now, since we've got a new camera, it doesn't have the Sony a7S III menus. I don't care too much about that. It looks prettier, might be laid out, but once I set my camera up and I put things in my menu and I put things on the buttons and I put things in my function, I hardly ever go into the menu. That's something just like maybe the first week I'm playing around with it, but once I get it set up, I'm pretty good, so I don't need that new menu. I don't even need a touchscreen menu, because even on the Panasonic G9, who has a touchscreen menu, I always just felt better just clicking through and then pressing the middle button for enter. That's just the way I am, and I'm explaining this to you to show you why this is the perfect camera for me, because it's just the way I use it works out perfect. The other thing about my menu, and I think it's only in this and not the Sony a7 III, is when I press menu, it automatically opens back up in my menu. So those things that I kind of get to or might get to and I don't want to dive into the menu, when I press menu, it takes me straight into my menu where I can put all of the features that I kind of use sometimes or might. So having the joystick, having the touch screen and all that stuff just doesn't make much difference for me because I have that little feature there. So what else doesn't this have that the Sony a7 III? It has a new shutter mechanism in it, which means, or what they designed it to only have one curtain. The Sony a7 III and most cameras that have, mechanical a shutter has two curtains. One closes and one opens at the same time to get your shutter. Well, on the Sony a7 III, when you put it in electronic first curtain, that means only one shutter activates. And this camera only has one curtain, so you can't shut the electronic first curtain off because it only has one curtain. For me, this is no big deal, but just so that you know, Manny Ortiz did a video, it might have been a year ago. He found out that when electronic front curtain is on, meaning it's only using that front curtain, that first curtain, like this is permanently on, that when you're shooting at fast apertures, let's say at f1.4, that your images with it on is going to be less blurry than when you shut it off. So meaning, if you're really into trying to blur the background out and you're spending lots of money on a lens to blur that background out, just know that on the Sony a7 III, when you have electronic curtain on, meaning only one curtain, that your background's not going to be as blurry as it could be. Now, I haven't tested that out on this, but I'm just assuming that it might be the same. So just know that if you're just you're going to get that new 50mm f1.2 because you want the absolute blurry background you can get, that with this being only one curtain, it might not be as blurry as if you were to get a full mechanical shutter like on the Sony a7 III. For me, I am not picky at all about bokeh. That's like just not even an issue for me. When I'm taking a photo, if the background's a little busy or something, then maybe I would stop down or just think about it or wish it was or something, but it hardly ever happens to me. So I don't care if I stop down a little bit. So having just that one electronic curtain or mechanical shutter is not an issue for me, but just be aware of that. Now, the other thing missing from this is the shutter speed. This only goes up to 4,000th of a second, okay? And the Sony a7 III goes up to 8,000th of a second. Now, when this first came out, me and David Osler, we both poo-pooed that idea like, oh my gosh, why would you get a camera that's not much smaller, we'll go into that in a minute, that has only 4,000th of a shutter and a sync speed of only 1/60th, right? And we'll go into that in a minute. So 1/4000th of a second is as fast as that shutter will go. What does that mean for you? That means that just means that you can't make the outside darker, right? So the sun is out, you're taking a photo of something. When it's really bright, what you're going to do is you're going to put your ISO at 100. But you want a blurry background. So let's say you're open at f1.8 or 2.8 or whatever it is. You're trying to get that to maybe the clouds not to blow out or something, right? So because you're taking a portrait, you don't want the clouds to blow out, but you want to keep that shallow depth of field. Then you go to 4,000th of a second, which is the fastest it goes. You're going like, oh my gosh, it's still clipped. What can I do? I can't make it any darker. Well, I took 2 photos before I did this video, as you'll see right here. And you can see, even with the 50mm at f1.8 at ISO 100, maxed out at 4,000th of a second, it was 11:30 in the afternoon. The sun was blaring. You can see the sharp shadows under the car and on the house back there. And you can see that the clouds are being completely hit by the sun, and also those golf carts at the bottom are being completely directly hit with the sun on their white roofs, and nothing is blown out. And that is a JPEG straight out of camera. So that's not even raw process. That's just JPEG. And now this photo here, you can see I got it darker. Now, how did I get it darker? Well, I went to ISO 50. So showing you that even with an f1.8 lens, you can get by with 4,000th of a second. If you're going to use an f4 lens, you'll still be okay. You can even use an f1.2 lens and still be okay, although now we're kind of pushing it. And how I calculate that is, if you put this on ISO 50, which will make your image darker, now that's an extended ISO, and a lot of people still talk about how, never use that because it's garbage, your images are going to be noisy. I've extensively used it, and I've side-by-siding it, and I've never seen an issue using ISO 50 on the Sony a7c. Might be different with other cameras or in the past, but on this, I've never seen an issue. So I looked up to see if other people seen issues, and I came across this website that shows sensor dynamic range data. And as you can see on this chart, 50 is almost identical to ISO 100 on this camera. You can choose different cameras on the right there. So it completely goes along with what I've seen. And if you're using a fast lens or you're at f1.8 and there's just something really bright back there and you don't have 8,000th of a second to go to, you can go to 50. You're not going to have any issues. And if we're talking any issues, I'd like anybody to do a side-by-side comparison and show me a link to how it looks crappier than ISO 100 on the Sony a7c. I'd like to look at it because I haven't seen any issues. And if someone does show a link, it's probably like side-by-side pixel peeping to see it. And even then, which I didn't see an issue. So to get around the 4,000th of a second, it's no issue for me. because typically I'm shooting with the Tamron, which is f2.8, which is not an issue at all with a 4,000th of a second. Even if I shoot at f1.8, I can use a 50 ISO, which again for me is no issue. And if it's still an issue, you can use NDs, which I'm not going to do. Or you could go into full electronic shutter, which then allows you to go to 1,000th of a second. And I use electronic shutter quite a bit. However, with that, you got to be careful, because if you're indoor lighting and there's LEDs or something in the room, you could get some flicker and banding. Also, if you're on a train or a car taking a photo, everything's going to be tilted. Or you're stationary and a car goes by, or a bicyclist goes by, or someone running goes by, or a bird or something, and you take a photo, it will be skewed, because I'm all like looking outside still. It would be skewed because of an artifact called rolling shutter. It's how the camera processes things in the electronic shutter mode. So that one is a little more iffy, but ISO 50, not a problem. So getting around that fast shutter speed, that's how I do it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the shutter sync speed. On the Sony a7 III, the shutter sync speed, I believe, is 250th of a second, I believe. On usually less than pro cameras, you're going to see that it's at 125th. This one is at 160th. What does that mean? That means if you're using a flash, and I want to, let's say I'm indoors and I want to drown out all the ambient light, that means I can only go to, let's say, 1/60th of a second. Well, I might need to go to 250th of a second to make everything darker. Well, for me, it's not an issue, because I use what is called HSS, or high-speed shutter sync. I use a flash, I use Godox, and when I have a Godox flash on here or a remote trigger, I use HSS, which means high-speed shutter sync, means I can put this camera at any shutter speed. I can go all the way up to 4,000th of a second and still have flash sync with my flash. Meaning, if you're not using HSS and you go higher than 1/60th of a second on here and you take a photo, you're going to end up capturing the shutter halfway in your frame, so you're going to have a black bar across all your photos. So you have to stay at 1/60th unless you use high-speed shutter sync, which means you can go all the way up as fast as you want, and the way the camera and lens and flash works, you're going to get perfectly exposed shots. So again, 1/60th of a second on this isn't a deal breaker for me. So we're going to talk about the EVF, because that's one of the main things people ask me about. I am someone who absolutely learned with Panasonic and Fuji that I'm like all about EVF. Even in my Canon days when I did video, I have the I don't have it here, but it's I forget what they're called, but they're the big loop that goes on the back with a big cup so you can see the screen, because I'm all about getting in that EVF to make sure focus is there. I got so used to, I just want to be in there with no sun blinding me. I want to see focus. But this camera is so good at focus, it just nails everything. I mean, I want to say it's perfect, because it hasn't missed yet, even in runway shoot. By the way, I use this camera on a runway shoot, which we'll get to in a second. And it just works so good that I've become one of those who just, and looking at the back of the screen. Even in bright sunlight, I can see the screen. It's not good enough for getting accurate focus, but this camera is so good, I don't need that. So I've been becoming less and less use of an EVF. And in fact, people said the EVF is complete crap. Well, compared to the Sony a7S III and maybe the Panasonic G9 and maybe even the Sony a7 III, but I use it out in the sun quite a bit anyways. If I'm just, sometimes I don't want to hold the camera out, because I need glasses now to see, so I'm starting to find out that I need to go further and further away. But if I just want to kind of not be out there taking photos like this, I look through that and it's no issue for me. It literally isn't, and I'm not trying to make it sound like, oh, you're just trying to make your camera better than what it really is. It really is no issue for me. That little thing, I love it. It's great. That brings me to the other point of why this camera is perfect for me, is I love rangefinder cameras. I much rather have my face on the side For one, I can use my eye. Two, my nose isn't pressed against the screen, and it's just, I'm right eye dominant. So it just works so good for me in vertical mode and in horizontal mode. When I had my Panasonic rangefinder type cameras, I just loved having a rangefinder. So now I have it in a small body full frame camera. I mean, it's just perfect for me. So now we'll go into two more things that is missing from this camera, from the Sony a7 III, that doesn't bug me, and that is 4K 60p. 4K 60p isn't an absolute must for me. It is more of a, it would be nice to have, but it's not a must to have. When I used to film short films with the Panasonic G4, what is it, what's it called? I'm starting to lose my all these models, but it had 4K 30p, but it didn't have 4K 60p. So when we were to film something, we always did a storyboard, and we would storyboard like this scene's going to happen here, and we're going to have this color motif on this shot, and the camera's going to be here with this focal length, and we would do all that on storyboard, and then we would also storyboard out the shots that were going to be in slow motion. Now, for one, I don't use slow motion all the time, and you've probably watched many Hollywood films where they never use slow motion. Slow motion to me is to use to convey a certain feeling about what's going on in the scene, so it's not something I use all the time. If you're a wedding photographer, that might be different. You might shoot everything in 4K 60p and might slow down most of that video. For me, it's different, so I don't need 4K 60p. If I was to do a film today, I would probably shoot it in 4K 24p, because it's just the settings I would use, because you got 4K, it looks great. You can shrink it down to 1080 if you want, and then do digital punch-ins or zooms and all that stuff. So I would probably do 4K 24p. And if we have like a short, how long would a sequence be in slow motion? Not that long. It would literally be seconds. I would be okay putting this in 1080 60p and upscaling it to 4K if we're going to output in 4K. If we're going to output in 1080, big deal. The thing is, if someone's watching your short film, they're not going to know any difference that if you shot most of that short film in 4K 24p, and then that small slow motion sequence in 1080 upscaled and 60p to slow it down. They're not going to know. They're not going to say, wait a second, there was a huge bump, downgrade in image quality. What the heck happened? Nobody's going to know. Trust me. So for me, a 4K isn't a plus or a must-have. It would be very convenient to have, but it's not necessary for me. So actually, the Sony a7 III doesn't have that either, but a lot of people poo-pooed this camera for not having it. For me, don't need it. So now the big thing we've got to talk here is the card slots. Now, dual card slots is kind of a big deal to me, but when I found out that this has an FTP transfer feature on it, which the Sony a7 III now has also with the new firmware 4.0, I did a video on this camera, but you can probably follow that with the Sony a7 III as well, that when I set my camera up, we're talking about photography, I shoot RAW plus JPEG. RAW plus JPEG gets sent to the card, and if you watch my video on how to do this, which you're probably seeing it here as I talk, you can have a photo. When I take a photo, RAW plus JPEG goes here, and a full quality JPEG goes to my phone. This works almost like flawlessly. Even when I turn the camera off, or I accidentally turn my phone off or whatever, I can easily get in there and just reactivate it like really quick. So it's not, it is a workaround. I'll be honest, I wish it had dual card slots, but it doesn't make me stop getting a backup. And for me, I got this camera set up to where the JPEGs look absolutely stunning, where I could probably use the JPEG most of the time anyways. So having that high quality JPEG go to my phone that's in my pocket or in my pack is just free, that I don't need dual card slots, because I'm taking a photo and I've got a backup in my phone. So watch that video, it goes way into, so dual card slots would be nice, but it's absolutely not a deal breaker for me for this camera. So yeah. So now let's get to the flippy screen. Now the flippy screen for me is one of the reasons why I wasn't 100% happy with the Sony a7 III, because with the Panasonic cameras that I've had, they all had flippy screens, and the Fuji cameras had a half a flippy screen. because I do a lot of low vertical shots. Also, a lot of people don't like flippy screens. Like a lot of photographers say they just want the flip down screen. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to try to show you, because they say, they go overboard. Like, you have this big screen off to the side and like, oh, that's not very secretive when you're doing street photography, having this big thing. Do you have to shoot like this for one? I would probably shoot like this anyways, you know what I mean? If you're shooting like this, it's when you go low, do you do a flippy screen? Now, with just the vertical, screens that go like this, you can only go in a horizontal way down wayside. Well, once you go vertical, you can't do that no more. So with the flippy screen, I'm going to show you guys, because nobody ever explains this, but if I want to be secretive and I want to do street photography and you are I'm going to take a photo of you, my audience there, you turn this way, right? So now I'm turning this way and I've got the screen. Let's turn it on. You can see I've got the screen here. It might be too dark. You see the screen right there? Let's pull this out so that, well, anyways, it's on, right? So instead of pointing the camera towards you like this with only this way, I can now go this way. But instead of going low like this, I can actually completely look to the other way, and I can look down like this, and now I can act like I'm looking this way, and you guys can't see it. Well, like this, right? I've got my finger on the shutter button, and you could put this down to your waist. I'm holding it high so you guys can see it, but I'm taking a photo of you guys, but it looks like I'm looking this way, and I'm focusing there. Okay, I got it, and I can just look that way. Now I'm taking photos of you right now, all right? And I'm looking down. So my whole body is this way, my camera's that way. So you want to talk about discreet. You can't get more discreet than a completely articulating screen like that. Likewise, if I want to do a vertical shot, I just turn the screen like this, and now again, I can be facing this way, and I could be taking photos. I got my thumb on the trigger. Sorry, I'm holding it down. And now I'm looking, my whole body's this way. The camera's that way, and they don't know I'm taking photos of them at all. So, for photographers saying they don't like that because it's not discreet, that's just nonsense. Now, if you want to complain that it's not as quick as to go vertical, well, for one, I typically, here's a couple ways you could do it. So it's closed. You can't see it, it's closed on itself. You can use this all you want. And if you want to do a low shot, I mean, it's not that much slower. So for me, having a flippy screen is just a must-have because I do tons of shots low. And the other thing I was talking about, I did a runway shoot with this, with that FTP setup. So I didn't want to oh my gosh, my card might get ruined. And I've been shooting since I was 16. I'm now 47, 47. I just turned 47 in March. I've never had a corrupt card. Okay, so just know many years never had a corrupt card, and I know it can happen. But with the FTP, it's good enough for me. So I wanted to throw that in there. I'm not worried about corruption as long as I have a backup anyways. So I'm doing the runway shoot, right? I was asked as a guest, so I wasn't getting paid, but I was able to sit in the photographer's pit, they call it, and I was all the way to the left on the bottom row, so I couldn't stand up and I can't move around, so I'm stuck right here, right? Well, because of the flippy screen, and I was lower than the stage, so I didn't want to shoot up on the models all the time, right? So because of this flippy screen, I was comfortably being able to hold the camera like this. Well, I'm sorry, I'm holding it up too high, but I'm holding it like this, right? And I could see the screen. If it was complete like this, man, I was holding it all the way up to get a shot, a full body shot, having the camera here instead of being way down there looking up, right? So I could flip this up, and I was very comfortable holding it like this, and the eye autofocus nailed every shot. And I'm just like, this camera was right at their chest level, so I'm not getting any awkward upward type shots. Am I still recording? Yes. And I'm just sitting there nailing shots. Boom, 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 here they come. And I used the kit lens too, which is crazy. I'm going to do another video on the kit lens, but I even used the kit lens. And I'm sitting there just nailing the shots. And this is more comfortable than having like no flip screen on it. And I was holding it up high like this, and it's like, oh my God, you can't see it. It'd just be very hard. But with this, I mean, it made life so easy. So a flippy screen for me is a must-have, and that's why I didn't 100% like the Sony a7 III. And one other cool thing is I do notice that the color science is a tad better. I didn't do any comparisons, but I put my camera on deep setting, and I forget the settings. Maybe I'll do a video on that. There's no rocket science behind it, but the photos look really good. I have a video about the Sony a7 III, how to get the best JPEG colors. With this camera, it's like I didn't have to do anything special. It just, the images look great straight out of camera. If you're into only shooting JPEG, it's quite amazing. So the size. Now the size, when it first came out, me and David Osler poo-pooed the size because I couldn't figure out, like, why would you get this camera over the Sony a7 III for all the minuses I just said, but in reality, I didn't need them. That's why you have to really, do you really need certain features before you just poo-poo a great camera that you might fall in love with. But anyways, the size makes a huge difference. Not having that hump and not having that EVF stick out makes, for me, okay, now I love the small 5-liter peak design. I love this. I traveled all over Europe with the Sony a7 III with 2 small primes, the Sony 55mm and the Samyang 24mm f2.8. They're small. It fit pretty well in here. But even with those small lenses, this has a pocket right here, and inside here I like to put stuff in, mainly batteries, like these Z batteries, right? But with the Sony a7 III, I couldn't close and zip this up because the EVF would hit the battery. So I had to just put batteries in different places and keep that empty. So there's a pocket there that I couldn't use with the Sony a7 III. If I were to move it and squish it around, I could kind of, like close it up. But with this, even though it's not, you don't think it's that much smaller, it is just night and day. It fits right in this so easy and zips up with batteries in that pocket and everything else. The other thing is, when I have the Tamron 28-75 on it, that extra size with this in there, I don't want to change it, with the with the Tamron 28-75 on the Sony a7C, because it's a little smaller, again, in the 5-liter bag, it fits without, really trying to squeeze the zipper on there. It just zips right up. So, you don't think the size is all that much smaller, but it really is if you're someone like me who likes to carry small bags. I mean, it really, really made a difference. So the size to me is a huge difference. And you don't jag, like having that EVF top mount, you're just not jagging on stuff when you pull it out. I mean, it sounds stupid, but it made a difference for me, and I like the smaller size. So the other thing here is this allows you, I don't think the Sony a7 III got this on the firmware 4.0 update, but it has the aspect ratio of 4:3. The typical aspect ratio of Sony full-frame cameras is 3:2. Now, when I was on Micro Four Thirds, it was a 4:3 aspect ratio. And going to the Sony, gives you a longer type of image. A 3:2 is a longer image. Maybe I'll show something here. And for me, when I'm doing portraits on the native 3:2 aspect ratio, there's always more sky or more ground than I want in the shot. 4:3, basically cuts a little chunk off of the top of that 2:3 and makes, for me, this is completely me. I know other photographers feel the same, but you might not. But for me, having that 4:3 aspect ratio just feels perfect for me. I mean, I love to see, when I print, I love the 4:3 aspect ratio. I just love it more than the 3:2. And this allows me to do it like my native Panasonics would be. The only thing is you're going down to 20 megapixels. I completely don't care about losing 4 megapixels. In fact, David Osler, he's been just absolutely adoring his Sony a7 III, which is only 12 megapixels, and he's been doing a lot of photography at 12 megapixels, and we've talked about this on our live show before. I mean, 8 megapixels is probably enough if you don't crop. 24 megapixels, I'm losing 4 megapixels. I can still crop all the way down to 12 or 8 megapixels for most of what I do. So you're losing 4, but I'm gaining that amazing aspect ratio. So that's really cool about this camera. Something that's really cool about this, now I know this is, I'm talking about photography only. If you're doing a video like I'm doing now, I don't know how long I've been doing this for, because maybe I'm reading and cutting and fixing my hair or whatever. This has no record limit. So naturally, if you want to film yourself like a video like I'm doing here, I can press record and it'll just keep filming and I don't have to worry about it. So that's, of course, a plus over the Sony a7 III. And speaking of long record time, the battery on this is much better than the Sony a7 III. I just got back from 2 days ago or yesterday? 2 days ago from Miami. We did lots of photography for 4 days. 4 days on one Z battery, and when I got home before I started filming this, I'm filming this on the a6000 right now. When I look at the battery, it was only 14%. So, oh, not only, but it still has 14% after 4 days in Miami of continuous photo, like all day long, not video, just photography. And that's looking at the photos, taking the photos. FTP, I had FTP to my phone almost every day just to have that backup, and it's 14% still, so amazing battery. Now, I'm not going to go into lenses in this video. I'm going to make another one for this kit lens, but just in case you're thinking about getting this camera, it comes with a kit lens, or you can get it without. When they announced this kit lens, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, why would you ever want a 28 to 60 f4 to f5.6 lens? I mean, it's just like, why would you ever want something like that? And then you have to click it out just to use it. And it's just like, really? I mean, I was so like that. I'm just not interested at all. But then I started using it. And now I use this lens more than my Tamron now. I know that sounds nuts, but when you're just going out and you're doing street photography in the daylight where low light isn't an issue, this is an amazing, I mean, it just feels so good. I did 4 or 5 videos of slideshows of my New York trip of me using this lens. So please go check those out. Maybe I'll leave the links in the description. And just watch the slideshows. They're just very short slideshows of some of the photos I took. I did model type shoots with this thing because, again, I shoot at f5.6 a lot of times. I don't want to blur everything out. That's just my style. But then again, sometimes I do. And it just worked great. I mean, it was sharp. I mean, it's corner to corner sharpness, very clear. Fast focus, it never skipped a beat, and it's fully weather sealed, dust and weather sealed or whatever they call it, and so is the camera. So these two together, you could be out in some rain or sandstorms, beaches, whatever, and you don't have to worry about this setup. And this lens, I got to do a review on, just blew me away. Go check those videos out. So yeah, quite amazing. And I apologize for going fast because I just don't want to make these, I don't have a whole lot of time to be honest with you. So hopefully you're keeping up here. Now, what about negatives? There has to be some negative about this camera. And I'll be honest, there's only one negative, and that is I don't have very big hands, and I have only 3 lenses at the moment. The Sony 50mm f1.8, the kit lens, the 28 to 60mm f4 to f5.6, and the Tamron. The Tamron is just like, it's hard for me to find any lenses that really replace that for me because it just does everything for me. But anyways, only the Sony 50mm f1.8, which you wouldn't think is the biggest lens of the bunch, but my knuckle rubs right where it gets bigger at, you know, because all these, well, not this one gets a little bigger, but most of the lenses, maybe in my Tamron, you'll have to look at it online or whatever, but you can see most Sony lenses. Let me come over here. Is that right? I'm trying to get a background good. So you can see where it goes skinny and then it gets big right here. Almost all Sony right here. Almost every Sony lens does this. But right here on this edge, on that the Sony 50, it just rubs my knuckle a little bit. Now, if you're holding the camera like you're going to take a photo like this, your fingers go, you know, in this position, and it doesn't rub. But when I hold it down to my side, I'm walking around, my knuckles end up, you know, going, you know, straight instead of, you know, like this, no problem. Like this, it just rubs every once in a while, and it actually left a little bit of a mark there, and it started annoying me a little bit. So that's the only negative I have about the camera, and it's a minor one because I don't have big hands, and if you just hold the camera like you're going to take a photo like this, it doesn't do it. But what I did anyways is the same thing I did on the Tamron. The Tamron doesn't do it as much, go figure. Maybe it's just the way it's rounded off here. But Maybe I'll get a closer image, but you could see that I put a little piece of the soft side of Velcro just right there where my knuckle hits, and it just softens it up a little bit, and I have no issues with it now. Now I put black Velcro on here, and on my fancy little gray skinned lens that you've seen in the thumbnail, I put some gray Velcro. Now make sure you use the fuzzy side of the gray, not the harsh side. And now it's just, I just don't feel that. It's not like I don't feel anything about it. So I did have to fix that. And that's really, out of all the shooting I did, that's the only negative I have, is just having my knuckle rub on one of my lenses. So if you have any comments, any comments or questions, leave them in the comment section below. And you know what? I don't know how much YouTube I'll do, but if you want to give this a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, because be rest assured that any videos for here on out, at least till the a7c Mark II comes out, it's going to be on this camera. So if you're interested in this camera, stay tuned to my channel, because it'll probably be about this camera or features and functions of it. So anyways, we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.